So this video shows us how to find the resultant force from two. Any two or more forces acting on an object are equivalent to a single force, and that single force is called the resultant force. So in this example, we've got two forces acting. We draw a little parallelogram, then that red diagonal there is the resultant force, i.e. that red force is equivalent to the two blue forces shown. Similarly, two more blue forces, if we draw a parallelogram, those two blue forces are equivalent to that single resultant force. Now, any resultant force can be obtained from a different pair of component forces. So that red resultant force on the right hand side of the screen is exactly equal to the one on the left hand side, but this time it's made up from two different individual forces. Similarly, there's another resultant force equivalent to the other two resultant forces you can see, but once again made up from a different pair of separate forces. In order to find the resultant force, here's an example. Once again, we draw our parallelogram. Now, because it's a parallelogram, the angle there on the right hand side is 60 degrees, which means the angle inside the parallelogram is 120 degrees. If we remark the 8 Newton force onto the right hand side of our diagram, we can then reduce our parallelogram down into a triangle. And now in that triangle we have two sides marked and the angle between, so we can use the cosine rule. So working our way through, using the cosine rule gives us 15.6 newtons to three significant figures for our resultant force. Once again, in example 2, we draw a parallelogram. The angle on the outside there would be 110 degrees, so the angle inside the parallelogram is 70 degrees, and we mark the 7 Newton force on the right hand side, and it reduces down to a triangle of forces where once again we have two sides and the angle between, so we apply the cosine rule and working our way through we get 11.6 to three significant figures. In order to find the direction of that resultant force, we need that angle there, theta, and for that we would use the sine rule, where sine theta over 7 is sine 70 over r. We've already found r in part A of this example, and we get 34.4 degrees to three significant figures.